Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have a great show for you today. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
How you doing?
Great. I'm excited for the new year, actually.
Me too. We talked about it in the makeup room how we both don't have resolutions.
Yeah,
we kind of
don't do
just
that.
have good intentions for the year and pray and hope for the best, right?
Exactly. Yeah, we went to New Year's Day Mass, the Solemnity of Mary, and, set some intentions up there, and hopefully they work out.
Yeah, I think that everyone wants good intentions for the government also. So let's hope that they have
Exactly.
some good plans for us all.
Indeed. And coming up on Rising, in a new interview with the Wall Street Journal, President Trump insisted that he is in good health and offered new details about a screening that he underwent.
Plus, Affordable Care Act subsidies have now expired, which means premiums will spike for millions of Americans.
And President Trump has decided to remove National Guard troops from select Democratic-run cities. But first up, Lindsay, what's in your lens?
Let's talk about it. So yesterday, New York City made history, and not in a quiet, symbolic way, but in a way that felt immediately like it tested what power is supposed to do. Zohran Mamdani was sworn in, becoming the youngest mayor New York has had in more than a century, and the first Muslim, first South Asian, and first African-born mayor to lead the largest city in the country. At 34 years old, with his hands on a Quran, Mamdani didn't just break barriers. He walked straight into one of the hardest jobs in American municipal politics with a very clear message. Expectations are not getting lowered. Standing outside of City Hall in the cold, Mamdani spoke directly to skeptics, supporters, and everyone in between, making it clear he understands the distrust people feel towards politics right now. And then he said this.
I stand alongside over 1 million New Yorkers who voted for this day nearly 2 months ago. And I stand just as resolutely alongside those who did not. I know there are some who view this administration with distrust or disdain, or who see politics as permanently broken. And while only action can change minds, I promise you this. If you are a New Yorker, I am your mayor.
That line matters because Mamdani knows symbolism won't carry him. Action has to. And he wasted no time. Moments after being sworn in, Mamdani signed 3 housing executive orders aimed at protecting tenants and accelerating housing construction across the city. He moved to revitalize the mayor's office to protect tenants and launched 2 new task forces focused on increasing supply, building on his campaign promise to freeze rents and tackle affordability head on. This isn't theoretical government. It's immediate. For students and young New Yorkers who showed up for him in huge numbers, the expectations are concrete. Expanded tuition assistance for education degrees, potential transit discounts or limited no-fare pilot programs, increased funding for community colleges and stronger advocacy for city universities. About 3/4 of the voters under 30 backed Mamdani. Now he has to keep them engaged. Of course, this mayoralty won't exist in a vacuum. He'll have to work with state leaders to accomplish these big ideas. He'll have to work with the federal government too. And remember, during Mamdani's campaign, President Trump called Mamdani an extremist, quote, lunatic, threatened to withhold federal funding, and even suggested he'd arrest Mamdani if he interfered with immigration enforcement. And yet, Trump later invited him to the White House, and after that meeting said, quote, I want him to do a great job and will help him do a great job. I'm hopeful that temporary truce will last, but even if it doesn't, it underscores just how seriously Mamdani is already being taken. At its core, this win sends a message Democrats really can't ignore. Mamdani ran a bold, unapologetic campaign centered on affordability, housing, and using government power to help working people. And he won. Not by running from ideology, but by offering a clear vision of what life could look like if government actually showed up. Now, this isn't just a New York story, and if Democrats are paying attention, they'll stop calling wins like this an anomaly and start treating them more like a roadmap.
All right, so definitely interesting swearing-in ceremony. I did want to point out, did you hear Letitia James totally bungle his name when she was...
I think she probably was like a big moment. Everybody was looking at
that
her.
Was tough. That was tough. Look, I think there's going to be a real test of socialist policies, collectivist policies under Mamdani. and whether or not his idea, his vision for housing policy will actually make things more affordable, or if government intervention leads to things being more expensive. Now, I appreciate that he did focus on the supply side of housing in those initial mayoral orders, executive orders, I suppose, which is important because the demand for housing has obviously increased significantly in major cities like New York, and you can't just freeze rent without increasing the supply and expect that that's going to make things better when you have this massive demand surge. So we'll see how it all works out. I think this will be a good test for the Democrats' progressive agenda.
I noticed another thing that he did was one of the executive orders was going to directly look into the people that, are like landlords that aren't doing a good job. And one of those people are Pinnacle Realty, which owns, I believe, has more than 5,000 violations across the city and 14,000 different tenant complaints. And they're in the middle of filing bankruptcy right now. And Mamdani in this executive order is like, not so fast. You need to make sure that these things are situated before you kind of get out of this, scot-free and say, oh, we're bankrupt, we can't do anything about it. There's a lot of people that are dealing with landlords like that Mamdani feels like they're getting the shorter end of the stick. Things like don't have the water hot when it needs to be, don't have cracks fixed. And he talked about and to those people in his speech and said, listen, somebody has to protect you and let the government start to do that. And so while a lot of people were frustrated with Mamdani for maybe overpromising and we haven't seen what he's able to deliver, I think the fact that he started with those executive orders and is trying to directly pursue what people voted for him for, it'll be a test, like you said, to watch what he's actually able to accomplish. I mean, Governor Hochul obviously is rerunning to be the governor again, so I don't know that she can just take on his full agenda and have the support of all of New York, because even though Manhattan and the city and surrounding boroughs are very blue leaning, a lot of the rest of the state of New York has mixed feelings about some of the policies that Mamdani had, which is why there was a back and forth about him being the underdog and rising to the place that he's at. But I do think that just for the fact that he's trying to move forward and implementing policy, that's what people are looking to. So when I talk about the Democrats as a wider party looking at him, it doesn't mean that, everybody in every city needs to follow this blueprint and be as progressive leaning as Mamdani. It means that Democrats forgot to speak to the average working American, and that's been repeated over and over again. Democrats have somehow become the party that talks to just college graduates and people with money, and somehow this took over the party that was the party of the working class. And no matter what majority of the country is of working or middle class. And so they need to get back and figure out what messages land. And obviously Mamdani's landed. And they're very actually similar to the messages of President Trump. Even if they have different strategies towards helping the same people, they spoke to the same issues. And so they have to remember that going into the midterms.
Yeah, I think my bigger concern for New York is actually more about how he's going to handle crime. He's appointed a few people to his cabinet that are big criminal justice reform advocates, and he has suggested sending in social workers to handle domestic violence calls. And then the free bus issue, I wouldn't be surprised if we see buses turn into roving insane asylums under Mamdani. But look, let's be real, right? Like, even if it's $1, fare to get on a bus it creates a barrier to entry for people who don't have good intentions. And just like anecdotally, when I was living in Pentagon City, I was accosted at a bus stop, and the only reason that guy wasn't able to follow me on the bus is because he didn't have a fare, and the bus driver was able to kick him off. And so I think as we see crime issues in New York over the past few years since the pandemic, that's an area where I think New Yorkers are going to learn very quickly that progressive approach isn't going to work.
Yeah, we're going to have to keep following. I know the MTA did a test run of this, and they said that there was a 32% reduction in assaults on specific bus operators when they tried this free run program. So I know that's not the people on the bus, that's the actual drivers, but we'll have to keep following it.
We will. All right, up next, a Wall Street Journal interview with President Trump is shedding new light about the state of the president's health. We'll take a look at it after the break.